What's up, guys? So, haven't done a rant video in a while. I guess I'm overdue. About to head over to my house and continue putting down my floors. You can see the adhesive still stuck to my hands. It's a dirty job, man. But I'm about halfway through the upstairs. Anyway, so obviously big news in the sport of boxing broke yesterday with Gennady Golovkin breaking with longtime trainer Abel Sanchez. And it's been all over the place. I haven't talked to anybody yet at that camp. I just haven't had the time, man. I'm moving next weekend. I got too much going on. But you got to think, in the lead up, in the promotion to Golovkin's fight with Steve Rolls, all the media, every single press event, the media guys, they're not going to be asking Gennady about that fight. They're going to be asking about the third fight with Canelo, probably, but also this thing with Abel Sanchez. So we're going to get more news and everything, but at some point I'll try to reach out to Abel Sanchez himself and to probably to Tom Loeffler and see if I could talk to those guys and just figure out exactly what happened. But look, this isn't very surprising, throughout boxing history, but especially modern boxing history. It's very, very common when you see a guy take his first official L to switch trainers, to switch camps. And a lot of times it's a psychological thing. The fighter wants to not just change trainers, but change scenery, a whole new camp location, just switch things up, start fresh, and for Golovkin, who's been going up to Big Bear, I think he'll probably go on 8 years. I think he started going up there in 2011, I believe, just off the top of my head. It was around that time. It's been almost a decade going up there to Big Bear. It's not easy to get up there, number one. It was always difficult to get up there for press events and when they'd have media workouts and everything. I was in downtown LA, getting out there, getting up the mountain and all that. It's not easy, it's isolated. But that's high altitude training. And some people think it's a good thing. There are a lot of people out there that think it's a bad thing, and it actually hurts a boxer to do extended training up there. It's good to do some I don't know, like a camp, like a mini camp up there, and then take camp back down to like LA or something. But Gennady's been going up there and training up there for months at a time now for almost a decade. And perhaps he just wants to get out of the high altitude training. Perhaps he just wants a whole new look. Perhaps he just wants to kind of do training in his own camp and everything his own way. We just don't know yet. And all those questions will be asked and all that stuff will eventually come out. But if I could just kind of guess right now, again, I've talked about this, on several different videos and shows and everything in the past 6 months. But from Golovkin's point of view, he's kind of always made concessions and done everything everyone else's way. He had to basically get in line for Canelo and play according to Canelo's rules for really the past 3 years, you think about it, because it took a while, him chasing Canelo and everything and Golden Boy and working behind the scenes with them, even just to get the Canelo fight. And then there was everything with the rematch. And then he feels, again, this is Golovkin's point of view, that he was done wrong by the system. And he tried to do everything the right way, and he was done wrong by the system. He thinks the IBF kind of screwed him with that mandatory situation last year. That had more to do with a beef between the WBC and the IBF and them not really getting along and working together that ended up costing him that IBF title. And then, of course, the first fight with Canelo, virtually everybody in the world feels that Golovkin won that fight. Even Canelo fans and Golovkin detractors mostly feel Golovkin won that first fight. The second one, though, was very close. And you can make a case that Canelo won. You can make a case that Golovkin won. Maybe a draw would have been just. If either fight was a draw, it was that second one. But from Golovkin's point of view, he won both those fights, and he was screwed over by the system. And at this point, he is going to do things his way. And you can either go along with that, or he's going to move on and love it or leave it. So obviously HBO broke down, so he couldn't go back to HBO, but he just signed that deal with DAZN. He has a certain plan to do things there. but even the way he's promoting fights now and moving forward with Triple G Promotions / working affiliated with 360 Promotions, Tom Loeffler is still the managing director of Triple G Promotions, regardless of what you may have heard from certain media sources. But I think Loeffler has been able to adapt and adjust and kind of go along with Gennady's new plan. Gennady's steering the ship now. He's doing everything his way. And one thing about the way Abel Sanchez runs camp up in Big Bear is very much a team philosophy. There are no individualists there in camp. You guys have probably all heard the stories about Sergey Kovalev coming up there and just not, just butting heads with Abel. And Abel even told Sergey Kovalev when he first came up there, you're going to win titles, dude. You're going to be a champion in this sport, but you're not doing it here. Because Sergey Kovalev is very much an individualist in camp. He doesn't have a team approach to things, and that's the way Abel Sanchez does camp. So maybe at this point in Gennady's career, and again, I'm not saying anyone's told me this or anything like that. I'm just speculating based off what I do know, just the history of all these folks. Maybe Gennady is just wanting to run things his own way and have a more private camp. And maybe at this stage of his career, he sees the light at the end of the tunnel. He knows that he's past his best. He's only got 2-3 more years left, and he's wanting to spend more time with family. He wants camp to be closer to home. Who knows? We just don't know yet. But it is announced. Gennady, Abel breaking up. And you saw Abel Sanchez, his reaction. There's several quotes that came from Abel that were tweeted out there and posted out there on social media. And it's clear that Abel Sanchez is very upset. Now, what I don't know, and I'll try to find out, is how did Gennady tell Abel that he was moving on? Was this an in-person, heart-to-heart talk where there were tears and hugs and things like that? I think it's pretty clear that didn't happen here because of Abel Sanchez, his reaction. Was it a phone call? Was it an email? Was it a text? Or was it like secondhand? Did it come from not even Gennady himself, but maybe a member of his team? Did it come from Loeffler, Fred Sternberg, who does their media relations, somebody like that? We just don't know. But if it did come via, that sort of impersonal way of messaging, you could clearly see why Abel Sanchez would be upset. And one thing about being a trainer in boxing, it's not an 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, punch in, punch out kind of job. It is very much a personal relationship. You're working nights, you're obviously working weekends, you're working holidays. You're spending time away from your family, if you have a family, with your fighter. And if you have a star pupil, like, Gennady Golovkin is Abel Sanchez, his star attraction, right? They really built something together from the ground up. And when you come from here and you build all the way up to here, man, you develop a relationship. You're basically, it's almost like being a doctor. You're on call 24/7. You think about, you're doing 2-a-days in camp, but then you think about Big Bear, the way it's set up. You're basically rooming together in the same house with your fighters, and you're eating together, everything else. And then, I know because I've spent time with him. It's not just Abel Sanchez, but his family, his family members were very close with Golovkin and some of his family members. And just they hung out as family. They were very, very tight, very close-knit group. So when something like this dissolves, it's like a breakup. It really, truly is. It's not hyperbole. It feels like a breakup. And it's some trainers, really just look at it as a business thing. Every client it's like a business. But then there are other trainers who put their heart and soul into a fighter, and it very much becomes personal for them. It becomes a relationship. It's the same thing with certain promoters, certain advisors, certain managers, etc., etc. Some folks just put their heart and soul into it, and some folks look at it purely as a business transaction. But clearly, Abel Sanchez cares very much for Gennady Golovkin, and the other way around. I really believe that. But anyway, so look, some of you are upset at Abel Sanchez's comments, which, did come off like somebody that was very upset and somebody that maybe should have thought of, calmed down and gave it a day or two before commenting. But we don't know the way these messages were delivered. We don't know if they were delivered in a classy, personal way or a cold, impersonal way. And that does make a difference. You know what I'm saying? But in time, years down the road, I think this relationship can mend and everybody will be cool, copacetic again. As far as Golovkin, you know, at this stage of his career, is it really going to matter where he trains, how he trains? Is he suddenly going to find this fountain of youth and go back to the Golovkin we saw in 2014, 2015, which is probably the peak of his physical powers? I don't think so. I think that, you know, he's on the downslide of his career. And that's unfortunate that so many of you guys out there never saw a prime Golovkin. He hit your consciousness, you know, right around the time that the talk of him fighting Canelo started to heat up. But this guy, man, go back and look at his fights in the early 2010s. You know, that was really the peak of his powers. So we'll find out if the decisions that he's making right now are going to be wise decisions or if they'll prove to be poor decisions. We will find out. Wanted to touch real quickly on Marcos Maidana, who I don't know if you guys have seen this. So, you know, he was trying to make this comeback and he was supposed to get down to 147 pounds and all that. And I just saw a couple of press releases where he said he's no longer coming back to boxing. Well, no shit. That's about as surprising as, you know, Congress not balancing the budget or, you know, violence in the Middle East. I mean, yeah, that's not at all surprising. And here's why. Boxing is fucking hard. It's hard. Even if you're a weekend warrior like myself, like many of you out there watching this, it's hard. And Marcos Maidana, you guys have all seen the pictures, man. He's been enjoying that Floyd Mayweather money, hanging out. You've seen the pictures, looking all tan and fat and shit, you know, having a bottle of something that he's drinking, having a cigar, you know, fat gold chains with a pot belly chilling on the beach. He's been enjoying life, man. And now all of a sudden he's got to melt down to 147. I think he got maybe to the upper 150s and said, fuck this. I'm going to go back to living my life. This is not basketball. This is not even American football, which is much easier to do than boxing because I've played, trust me. And I've talked to football players who have done boxing and they'll tell you, this shit is hard. It's very hard. So for a guy who's been retired for several years, now you see some guys retire and they still are disciplined in their retirement. And they miss the limelight. They miss the you know, attention, the crowds, the adrenaline. And they make a comeback. You know, we've seen that a million times. But when you see a guy, you know, retire and just sit around and get fat and party and have a good time, coming back to this shit, you gotta be crazy. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think Marcos Maidana misses that limelight and, you know, he'd love to come back one last time. And I still say there's a fight between him and Lucas Matisse that they can make any time at any weight. But Matisse ain't going to fight the guy at, you know, 168. It's going to have to be reasonable. So that still might happen. But halfway through training, you know, when he's being told, look, dude, you know, by the PBC people, if you're going to come back and do this, you're getting down to 47 so we can milk Spence a little longer and make Terrence Crawford get older. We need another body, dude. You know, that's where you're going to be at, 147. You know, he was going to be used in that whole scheme that they're pulling right now on you guys. And Maidana was like, nah, I ain't doing that shit. I ain't getting down to 47. So that's all it is. That's not surprising. You know what I'm saying? And don't be surprised if in another year or so he says, I'm going to give it another chance. I'm coming back, damn it. I'm sure it'll happen. Let's see, what else? Talked about Jarrell Big Baby Miller on TNC this week. If you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. Look, he should be suspended for at least 2 years. Minimum 2 years. Boxing needs to do the right thing here. This guy is a serial doper. Serial doper. 2-year suspension, nothing less. If they don't pull the trigger on that, it's a horrible, horrible look. I didn't talk about this on TNC, but Katie Taylor has a fight coming up on the Joshua / whoever it's going to be undercard. And she's going to completely unify the lightweight division. The fighter that she's fighting, I don't know if it's Delphine Pearson or Delphine Pearson, but a very good, proven female fighter. In fact, she's a top 10 pound-for-pound female fighter. Last year, the Boxing Writer Association of America put out a top 10 ladies pound-for-pound list. And it might have been the first time they had done this. It was certainly one of the first times. And I remember looking at that list, and now I just pulled it up yesterday, and I looked at it. And what was interesting, Claressa Shields was on that pound-for-pound list. Katie Taylor was not listed. She had votes, but she was not in the top 10. Claressa Shields already was in the top 10, so I thought that was highly ignorant and disrespectful. But the BWAA is pretty biased towards American fighters and, quite frankly, prejudice against a lot of European fighters. But one fighter from Europe that they did have on the pound-for-pound list, Delphine Pearson. Christina Hammer was not on the top 10 list. I think she had a couple of votes, but she wasn't listed top 10. So anyway, what you're getting with this Katie Taylor fight is two ladies that are in the top 10 pound-for-pound list for female fighting. So if you were one of those people that were out there banging the drums for the Shields-Hammer fight, that this was this historic big event in boxing and that it's the biggest event in female boxing history. Clearly we know now that it wasn't. Maybe the biggest fight in America, but not commercially, because when Layla Ali fought Christy Martin, that was bigger. And there were other female fighters who were more popular than Shields. Mia St. John, for example. So I don't think it was the biggest event. But it was the biggest event in the middleweight division in female boxing history. I'll give you that. But Christina Hammer clearly is not an elite level talent. She's a kind of, that second tier. Good fighter. Maybe the second best middleweight out there after Shields, but just not on Shields level, right? Well, here you're getting two elite level female fighters. One in Delphine Pearson, who's proven, who's been around for years, very good, proven record, that's been respected, not just globally by the boxing community, but even the BWAA recognizes her as one of the 10 best female fighters in the world, going up against Katie Taylor, who is already proven as a top 10 female fighter pound for pound, and they're going to completely unify the lightweight division. So if you were excited for that fight, for the Shields-Hammer fight, and you were pounding the drums, and you were white knighting for that, because a lot of you guys were, and talking about how historic that was, you should be every bit as excited and talking with just as much excitement and vigor about Katie Taylor and Delphine Pearson. And I know for a fact many of you are not, because I don't see all the YouTube videos, I don't see all the tweets and posts on Facebook about it. That's a shame. That's a real shame, and it shows a clear agenda and bias. So if you're going to be supportive of female boxing, and look guys, it is something that's becoming more and more a part of the picture overall in the general boxing landscape, be fair across the board. And I'll tell you something, if Katie Taylor dominates Delphine Pearson like Shields did Hammer, Katie Taylor's performance is going to be more, I'd rate it higher, because Pearson is rated higher and is more proven than Hammer, who it turns out all Hammer has is a jab. So we'll find out what happens June 1st with that lady fight. Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I did an assumptions video, right? I think it was Sunday night, I posted an assumptions tag video. A lot of you guys have made your assumptions on the comments section there. I will get to that, I promise. It's a crazy week right now. I'll get to that by the weekend. Okay, but that's pretty much it, man. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on all this. Look, have patience with the Golovkin and Sanchez situation. Be understanding of Sanchez in his comments, because I think clearly he's hurt right now, and we just don't know enough information about how he was told about this whole thing, and that does make a difference. It truly does. So we'll find out what happens with all of this, right? And we'll find out over the coming years if Golovkin's choices are smart or if they're not so smart. Just like Deontay Wilder turning down $100 million on DAZN to kind of go his own way. Look, maybe 3 years from now, Deontay Wilder will look like a genius. Maybe he won't look like a genius. We'll find out, all right? These things play out over time, guys. Boxing moves very slowly. In the meantime, look, man, schedule's heating up over the next couple of months. The best card of the year is this weekend in Los Angeles on DAZN, but you're also getting, that's Friday, and then Saturday you're getting another good card on DAZN with Regis Prograis. I think he's going to win his first world title. Nonito Donaire is going to fight, I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, who's a replacement for TT because TT hurt his shoulder. So I think that means Donaire is going to win, and I was favoring him to win by upset special anyway. But man, Friday and Saturday, you're getting some great action on DAZN. That subscription is going to start paying for itself over the next couple months. So we got a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss, and hey, I'll see you at the fights.